Good morning, guys. Welcome back to Run Live Well. I hope you enjoyed our video last week. We've got another exciting topic for you here today: how to run a fast marathon on a hot day. I'm going to invite you to come along with us to run down under with the kangaroos. We had an especially hot marathon this past September. It got up to 86 degrees. I'm going to let our virtual Run Live Well drone, Hawk, take us on a trip around the course, a drone's view, to get oriented. Hey, new listeners, I forgot to introduce myself. My name is Dr. Jeff. I'm a physical therapist and a running specialist and a strength and conditioning specialist. Today, I would like to give you 7 tips for running a successful marathon in the heat. Take time to study the course map so you know where you will have access to water, hopefully ice, and nutrition. So another thing that made this marathon particularly difficult was that the water stops were 1.5 miles apart, and sometimes it seemed like they were a lot further apart than that. Maybe it was just because of the extreme heat conditions. Another very important tip for a good performance in the marathon is nutrition. And I think I'll have completely separate future videos on nutrition. But let's just say that in the heat, for many of us, just taking in all those gels, it's just not palatable. But the research does show that your performance will improve. In fact, you can improve your performance up to 5% if you take 3 gels per hour, and also take it with some fluid. But yeah, you want to get between 30 to 60 grams of carbs per hour to just kind of keep your glycogen reserve up. I'm not getting any endorsement from or money from GU or Roctane, but I've used this for over 20 years of racing, if you include my cycling and Ironmans, and it works very well for me. And what I like about it, it's sort of a one-catch-all. It's got a little bit of everything in it that I might forget to take: sodium, potassium, calcium, amino acids, and then of course your carbohydrate. And even some caffeine. And I really like the caffeine boost later in the races. And caffeine really is, the research shows it is a performance-enhancing drug. And it's legal. A lot of elite runners and triathletes are starting to use these cool little core temperature sensors to closely monitor their core temperature. They use the information to govern their effort. If the core temperature starts to climb to a certain danger zone, their performance is going to decline. The body has a central governor which tries to keep the temperature within a very narrow range. Recent research shows that once the body temperature climbs from its normal 98 degrees to slightly over 101 degrees, there will be a decline in athletic power. By keeping our core temperature down, we can keep our central governor from shutting us down. One of these special challenges with running in the heat is that our bodies are only about 20% efficient. For every unit of mechanical power harvested from chemical reactions at the cellular level, there is 80% wasted energy, which the body sheds in the form of heat. It is critical that we find a way to shed this heat in a hot race, or our performance will decline, and if our central governor is not effective enough in slowing us down, we put ourselves at the risk of developing heat illness. So I believe the central governor theory was first proposed by Tim Noakes, a South African running researcher. He describes it in his monstrous book here, Lore of Running. I highly recommend it. There is some more current information out there, of course, on a lot of the topics now. But what he proposes is a central governor, our subconscious mind that preserves our body, keeps us from doing things that could be destructive to our health. So our subconscious takes input from the different sensory systems of the body. It takes pain information, pain from our muscles, takes into account heart rate and core temperature. Core temperature is another big one that we'll talk a lot about today. So Dr. Noakes' theory is that our athletic performance can really be much greater than what we allow it to be because of the central governor that protects us. And if there's ways of overriding the governor, perhaps we'll have a better athletic performance. Well, this isn't always wise because with this reward of increased performance, there's increased risk to our health. So we have to weigh the benefits of what we're trying to achieve. Most of us aren't going to win $100,000 checks for winning a marathon. Let's talk about one of my favorite hacks for competing in a really hot race. done a number of hot Ironmans. Quite often the marathon in an Ironman is hot because you've been biking all the morning, that 112 miles and the swim before. So usually you're starting the marathon, at 1 or 2 in the afternoon, right in the heat of the day. What were they thinking? So this next hack I learned from Endurance Nation. Patrick at Endurance Nation. He developed this little bag here called the 18th mile bag. I think he got the name 18 miles because that's usually where the wheels start to fall off in the marathon. Not necessarily because of hydration, but just because of usually carb depletion. Most of us have burned through a lot of our glycogen by this point in the race, and if we haven't been ingesting enough, that's when you start to hit the wall. So the way this bag works is it's a very porous, lightweight material, and the caveat with this is it's for ice. So if they don't have ice on the marathon, if you don't have access to ice, don't bring it. So I didn't even bring this to Sydney, and there was only 1 or 2 places where I was actually able to get some ice cubes on the whole course, which wasn't great race planning. I think they'll do a better job next year. So there's a little elastic here that you can pull it closed, and then you can put it down your shirt. I usually bring 3 of these, and I put 1 in my hat if I have a hat on. In this race, I didn't have a hat for reasons that we'll talk about. There's a lot of nerve endings and vessels in the head, so it's a great place to put ice to get your core temperature down. Another great place is along the core, like in front of the heart, and I put 1 down my low back as well. In a triathlon, I use just baggies even sometimes because they're going to stay in place if you have a compression suit on, and I almost always compete in a compression suit. I hope these weekly Run Live Well videos are bringing you guys lots of useful information. I hope that you will take a second to like and subscribe. This helps us grow our brand new running channel and expand our community. Thank you very much, and Run Live Well. I really believe in drinking to thirst. I've done marathons in the cold where I've hardly drank very much at all. One might be tempted in these extreme heat conditions with low and unfrequent access to water to gorge on water when you get to these rest stops. This is not a good idea, and actually it's a fairly dangerous practice. Hyponatremia, that's a condition when your sodium gets too low, can be a fatal condition. Our nerves that conduct action potentials, they need the elements of sodium and potassium to be in balance. So I don't overthink the drinking of the water. I try and take in moderate amounts, a little bit more when I'm thirsty. The condition hyponatremia, if you would like to learn more about it, another one of Tim Noakes' books, Waterlogged, I highly recommend it. A lot of runners have asked us why we would want to fly halfway around the world and endure that flight just to run a marathon. There's several reasons. I think the main reason is a few years ago we completed the 6 stars. So that's the 6 World Marathon Majors. This medal here has coin-sized mini medal within the medal that represents each of the different 6 cities. So you've got, in the US, you've got Chicago, Boston, New York, and then abroad we've got London, Berlin, and Tokyo. And there's a very good chance, I hear, that Sydney could be number 7. So Sydney, if you do, don't forget to send us our updated medal in the mail. So the way my water stop looks on a hot day like this is I try and run up to the first available person. I'm calling out, water, 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 to make sure they don't give me Gatorade, unless I want Gatorade or an electrolyte drink. I grab 2. I always say 2, and most times you get 2. And then I drink 1 while I'm pouring the other one on my head. And then by the time I get to the other end of the station, I do the same thing again. And if I'm not thirsty enough to drink that second one, it just goes on top of my head. So this next tip, I'm a little bit hesitant to share, just because I'm probably going to lose half my audience because it may be way too basic, but I imagine I have some viewers who are new to racing altogether, so I really feel that I need to teach people how to drink out of a cup while running. Now before I get into that, it's perfectly fine to walk in a marathon, and the aid stations are a good place to walk as long as you check and make sure that there's no one on your heels. It's not good marathon etiquette to stop at a water station and have someone run into you. I have had all kinds of experience at aid stations with nutrition and volunteers. You have to realize that the workers are volunteers. They're incredibly generous people, generous with their time to be out there, but they may not have hardly any training at all. A lot of the cups are too full, so you may need to dump some of the water out, and a good place to dump it is on your head. Make sure it's It's not Gatorade though. I have over the years dumped a number of cups of Gatorade through my hair, and I have to admit that I did it for the first time in several years in this Sydney race. I was just so concentrated on just getting a couple of cups of water on my head every time I had access to it. So if you wish to run while you're drinking, just make sure your cup is half full, and then just simply pinch the top of it, and then you've got a spout, and you will get 95% of it where you need it. If in advance you know the race is going to be hot, heat acclimatization can really help. Heat training for 2 to 6 weeks can result in adaptations in the body similar to altitude training, which we know is beneficial for elite athletes. Heat training can increase hemoglobin levels by 2.5%, and it can also increase blood plasma volume. Choosing the right clothing is essential. Opt for lightweight and light-colored, moisture-wicking, breathable fabrics that reflect rather than absorb sunlight. I often wear a hat to hold ice on my head. In this race, I chose no hat for 2 reasons. Number 1, there wasn't going to be hardly any ice available. And number 2, the humidity in Australia is extremely low, which helps evaporation. So the head being one of the most vascular areas in the body, it is one of the best areas to have evaporation occurring, and the hat can interfere with that. Evaporation is an endothermic reaction, and it can produce a lot of cooling. If you need something protecting your eyes in conditions like Sydney, you might also opt for a visor, so a lot of your scalp is exposed to the elements for evaporation. In general, I always encourage runners to have their race plan written in pencil rather than pen so that they may make adjustments. This also applies to their race season plan. In hot conditions, if you don't make adjustments, they will be made for you. So, in this case, a month before the race, the predicted temperatures were 40 to 45 degrees for marathon day. By race day, it had crept up to the mid-80s. If we did not adjust our expectations and goals and pace, we may have ended up in the hospital like, unfortunately, 26 other runners did. For changing your pace on a hot day, Olympian and expert running coach Jeff Galloway suggests that we should slow down and adjust our pace upwards 30 seconds per mile for every 5 degrees warmer than 60 degrees it is. So for us, that would have meant that we should slow down 2.5 minutes per mile. This would not have allowed us to come close to our race goals. We wanted to qualify for the Boston Marathon. So we did slow down, but just not this much. However, for training, I think it's very reasonable to slow down this much on hot days to avoid the dangers of heat illness. My last but not least tip is to listen to your body. If you start feeling symptoms of heat illness, namely dizziness, nausea, headaches, and chills, you need to slow down or even walk. If the symptoms are severe, you need to stop running and seek shade in a cool environment and seek medical assistance. It is crucial to prioritize your health over your finish time. So guys, it was a great race. I hope you enjoyed seeing some of the marathon. I hope many of you get a chance to try it someday. I also hope that some of these tips for staying cooler and avoiding heat illness will help keep you safe in future hot marathons. So guys, if you have questions about any of the material in this video, or if you have other running related questions, you can leave me the questions in the comments below, and I will do my best to get back to each and every one of you. Have a good week. Run live well.